Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to Madrid in Game, for coming to this event, Games from Spain and in Meet to Match. We believe it's a perfect opportunity to get to know the Spanish gaming ecosystem. We will have a very complete couple of days. It will start now with a panel about the opportunities we have in the sector in Spain. We'll have afterwards, it will be followed by 10 pitches from Spanish studios that I think will be very interesting. And you will have a cocktail at 12, so everyone is welcome to come there. And I think it's, as I was saying before, a very good opportunity. I'm not taking more time because I believe the panel is a lot more interesting than I am. And thank you, Eduardo, for hosting the panel. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pablo. Thank you for your welcoming words. Yes, well, today, welcome everyone to this panel. Today we are going to talk about the Spanish gaming ecosystems. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Eduardo Sanchez, and I work for Icex. Icex is the public entity in charge of international commerce and investment. So it means on one side that we help companies to export their products and services abroad. And now this message is for the studios in the room, because we organized visits to the main international exhibitions, such as GDC in Los Angeles or Gamescom in Germany. But also, on the other hand, we help investors to help the best opportunities to invest in Spain, in our country. And this is the area where I work with. And we are really committed to promote this kind of events. I mean, to put in contact the studios with investors. So, and to talk about today about the Spanish gaming ecosystem, I think that we have an amazing panel of experts. Next to me, Adrián Galea from Bitkraft Ventures, which is one of the biggest venture capital firms in the world. José Moreno from AEVI, Asociación Española del Videojuego, which is, an association that represents all the players involved in the change, from publishers to developers. And Teresa Bretón from AXIS ICO. ICO is the financial institution, I guess you already know it. And they manage a fund of funds, and they try to promote the venture capital ecosystem. So let's start. The first question, to kick off, maybe is to give an overview of the ecosystem today. Maybe, Adrián, if you want to start with a wide, approach from your international, side, because we are living, now I'm talking about the ecosystem, about maybe the things that are happening in Spain, but we are living very good times. The sector is growing. We have, biggest number of studios, employment, they are increasing revenue. So what is your approach, to this?
Yeah, I think what's happening in Spain is also one of the reasons why the existence of dedicated venture capital firm to video games, not studios, but video game industry in general, can exist or are similar, because the industry is expanding and growing. So whereas before there was a game studio would go to a publisher and those games will be released, now you have different platforms on which to release games, and for how audience enjoys interactive experiences, digital experiences. So you have the evolution of mobile gaming studios, you have the interaction of how games are developing through game platforms, and now you have technologies coming into there like VR, AR, artificial intelligence, and even new ways of maybe interacting with games, such as Web3 and blockchain opportunities. So the industry is really expanding its base, so it's allowing new players to come in, because there are new business models that are coming in, which make it sensible for even venture capitalists to come in and not invest in just a game, but actually invest in a studio, the vision of the studio, and what is initially a game that is released in a direct way, then eventually can evolve into a games as a service, which can create recurring revenue for the game studios and those people invested in it. So it creates different ways for financing opportunities, and a different way for publishing, and different way for the distribution of the entertainment experience. So all these new factors are coming in, are creating a more diverse market, a more open market for new players to come in. And we're seeing in the way startups are being built in the video gaming sector is that in Spain, people are aware of this, right? So you do have a lot of indie studios. I think the majority are still in the studios, but in the exercise that we did together, and maybe I'll mention a bit more about this later, we're seeing diversity in the studios that are being built, and they're not just focusing on gaming experiences, they're focusing on peripheral experiencing around games and different types of games for different audiences. So Spain is very quickly picking up on how the industry is evolving.
Jose Maria, do you agree, with these words? Do you think that we're in the wave, that the same, the rest of the world here in the Spanish ecosystem?
Yeah, of course, I think so. Well, Spain is currently the fourth, sometimes the fourth, and sometimes the fifth market in Europe in terms of income generated of turnover. We've got currently a turnover of around 1,800 million euros. That was in the year 2021, and we expect some growth for this year too. And it's been a constant growth during the last years, and so the sector keeps on evolving and growing. In fact, currently in Spain we have more than 18 million gamers, people who play video games every week, every month. So also in terms of population of users, the sector is growing, and also in terms of jobs created. We have currently around 9,500 people working in our sector directly, more than 23,000 with indirect jobs, and we expect that this number could double in 3 or 4 years because of the sector growing itself, because of the support that we are getting from local authorities, and because of the quality of the talented people we've got here in the country. So that's what we expect, and we expect this growth not only in terms of studios, developers that we have in the country, because we have now more than 450 studios working on video games, but also in terms of other players within the industry, also in the world of esports, where different players are also important and are growing, and also in terms of publishers, because more and more publishers are having presence in our country, and we expect that will still happen in future years, and you can see it not only in Madrid, also in Barcelona and in other regions, that the number of stakeholders is growing, and international players are also putting their eyes in Spain.
Okay. And Teresa, what is the role, that public administration has to play, to promote this ecosystem, and in particular, in your case, to promote the venture capital industry, because they need to be pushed, and the money needs to be come in, okay, to invest in the project and in the studios.
Yes, of course. AXIS is a venture capital manager. It's owned by Instituto Crédito Oficial. We invest in venture capital funds. We have at least more than 50 venture capital funds as investor, and I think the industry of venture capital is growing, and they are looking for this type of business. Well, I think it's very interesting here in Spain, the video game sector. We don't have specific funds that invest in this type of companies and business, but at the end, I think they have this focus, and the sector is growing. They are looking for this type, and there are a lot of funds, venture capital funds. They are not specialists, but they are looking for these funds, and I think now there is an ecosystem for financing this type of business and companies.
Well, that's a very good news, for the industry in general, that the money is coming in, okay? And maybe one point that we know the money is coming in is that during the last years, we have seen some M&A operations in Spain some of them led by international investors, and such as Tequila Works or Digital Legends. And Jose Maria, maybe you can ask me first. I mean, what are the factors that you think have attracted, the interest of international investors to invest in the Spanish studios?
Well, as you say, it's not only studios. You also mentioned it. It's all different kinds of players within the industry, because we've got there is interest in mobile developers and freemium games. There's interest in PC and consoles developers. There's interested in esports. There's interested in VR and AR projects. There's interested in platforms. So here in Spain, we've got this full ecosystem of stakeholders within the video game industry that is being successful, and investors keep an eye on them. As you say, 2022 has been probably the hottest year in terms of investment worldwide, with more than 600 deals. Some of them are very well known because they were big deals, international deals, Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft, or Zynga and Take-Two and others. But in Spain, it's also been a good year. Some of the deals were banger games. You mentioned Tequila, but also Digital Legends, Novarama, Elite 3D. So there have been different studios and different companies, some of them also in the business of esports. For example, Team Queso got some investment, GameStree, or some others. And a few months ago, also some other big deals with Genera Games in Seville, or with Social Point a few years ago in Barcelona. So we could say that Spain is also a country that is somehow hot. It's in fashion for investors. That's probably because of several factors. The first one I would mention is talent. We've got very talented people. When we organize this kind of meetings with investors, then we ask investors what are their feelings about the projects they met. And the feedback we get pretty often is, look, these people we met were as good as any other worldwide coding games and developing, better than in any other place in terms of creativity. They're really talented people. And they are improving in something that where they were not as good a few years back, which is marketing and commercial knowledge and this kind of things. They're improving on that, but on these other two aspects, they are really good. And I think that investors know it, and publishers know it too, and that's why they're thinking investing in Spain. But there are more reasons, of course, aside of the quality of these professionals and these companies that we have, which, as you can see, are other external things. We've got nice weather, we've got a nice quality of living, we've got, at the same time, the cost of life is also different than in other places. We've got competitive salaries, and this is a country that is well connected worldwide. So there are several reasons for professionals to want to work from Spain, are for companies to want to invest in this kind of professionals, talented professionals that want to live here or live here currently.
Okay. Adrian, I mean, do you agree? Because you are, I mean, from your foreign, investors, I mean, we are full of talented people. I mean, what are the reasons you think, Spain is?
Yeah, look, so first of all, the reason we are here is for the exterior reasons, right? So the good quality of life, the good availability of talent. Spain is a great place to live. There's great food, there's great wine. So it's fantastic to be around here. And
well, in fact, you moved from abroad to
yeah, absolutely. And I don't regret it one bit. So, but that's very important, right? So we should never discount that, because even when you're a game studio and you're hiring talent, it really does make a difference. So let's not discount that one bit. Now, when you try and think about an ecosystem, keeping things very simple, you'd look at three pillars, right? The one that's talked about the most, but believe me, it's not the most important, is availability of finance, right? So this is why we're here today. There are publishers, there are investors. That's important for the ecosystem to inject. into the talented studios. But the other two pillars are as important, if not more important. First of all, it's the game studios themselves, right? The talent. We talk about talent ad nauseum, but it is the most important factor. You cannot have a good ecosystem without great talent. And what I learned from this mentorship project that we did is, first of all, there's a lot of enthusiasm for the video gaming industry. And the studios I speak to have a big heart and a lot of courage to build a career for themselves in this industry. So you go to general venture capital events, it's very business, it's a bit cold. When you go to video game events, it's like very enthusiastic, a lot of energy. So that's something you can say, okay, something is bubbling here, and you really feel it in Spain. The question is, are the video game studios talking to each other enough? And that's something I want to explore more. Are they learning from each other? You mentioned about the commercial knowledge, the marketing know-how. Maybe how to code you learn from great universities like the one where we're in, and there are others across the country. But the other, building a business. Last time we were speaking about this story about a game studio which grew out of a group of students, and then one became the CEO. And all of a sudden, his mind shifts turned from building a game between friends versus now I'm the leader of a company because he received some investment. And he has no clue how to do that. And his co-developers still treat him like a friend, but there is a different dynamic when you are the CEO. You're responsible for their wages. You're responsible for their livelihood. You need to be able to speak to others in your peer group to be able to help you get through that. So that's the second pillar. And the third pillar is we heard all these success stories that are coming out of Spain. It's so important that these game studios that are up and coming have heroes to talk to. And those heroes are not on a pedestal up there, but they're people that they can talk to and they can learn from. So that's another, so like we're having events for the first pillar, for these financing studios, investors, publishers, we should have events that where successful game studios are just out there receiving questions and talking to the up-and-coming game studios and teaching them how to develop further. Because even if you look at the data from the most successful venture capital investments, many times, the first money in is not from big investors or publishers, it's from business angels. People who have been successful previously and invested in a studio and helped them develop. That's such an important pillar that needs to be curated.
Okay.
If I may, I fully agree with your 3 steps. I have to say, on the third one, I really believe that, well, these success stories that we can tell now in Spain are quite recent. So, but I'm glad to see that those who have been successful do share their experiences and their knowledge with the younger generations. So that, I think that that's working. And on the second one you mentioned, this is one of the issues we've had in the past. I looked with a certain envy to what happens, for example, in the Nordic countries, where studios are able to share information, to work together, even to create something new in order to develop bigger projects. And here, that did not happen in the future because they were, you know, very. Every developer wanted to protect their own project and develop their own project, but now that's starting to change. So this is one of the areas where we're working more with the industry. These developers are smart people, and we are realizing that they cannot aspire to certain big projects being small, and that they have to work together, maybe create something new, and that's starting to happen. And I'm pretty optimistic for the future. But as you say, that's something that we have to work on together, because that's one of the areas where we have to better ourselves.
Okay, so one of the duties is to connect, you know, all the ecosystem, all the players, not only maybe studios and startups, but also with the accelerator, hubs, etc., you know, to create and to shake the ecosystem. And another one you mentioned was the funding side. And regarding that, I think, and maybe Teresa can confirm us, that Spain, the public administration are fully committed with this duty, and because in the recovery plan, we have included a specific, item to promote the audiovisual ecosystem. Within the audiovisual ecosystem, also the video gaming. ICO is one of the ICO-AXIS, one of the entities, public entities involved in this plan. So maybe Teresa, you can give us, more detail about this commitment?
Well, as a venture capital firm, in this sense, in this context, we have launched a new fund. Is funding on Icex. With this fund, we invest not only directly in scale-ups, in big companies, innovation companies, but also was created with the aim of promoting the development of innovative, high-impact digital projects and investment in growth companies, scale-ups, no? And in this context, I think this sector is very interesting for this type of investor. So,
yeah, but I mean, I absolutely agree. We have been very focused on startups. I mean, public administration. I think that scale-ups, also need our support, and they are able to really create, a lot of jobs and wealth, to our economy. So it's a very good, point to support also the scale-ups. Also following with the funding issue, maybe a question, for anyone of you, but what are the main sources or the favorite sources for the startup studios? Because we have the venture capital firms. They take an equity, okay, when they invest in a company, in a startup, or in a studio. But we also have publishers. You can sign an agreement with. Start. They give you money in advance to finish maybe your game, and then they take. They can take or not part of the equity. What are the main sources or the one that the startups or the studios they prefer?
Well, locally, the first source of financing is, of course, self-financing locally, and that's one of the things, and why projects until a few years ago were of a limited size, I would say. Now, studios have realized that they have to grow, they have to work on bigger projects, and that for that they need more resources. And when you talk with these studios, some of them tell you, look, I would be happy to share the income generated by the game. So I want somebody who could help me develop this game, and I would prefer not to share the stake in the company. Some others tell you, I'm happy to share with a venture capital, for example, some part of the shareholding of the company. So, and all of them, all these different types of funding, also public funding, are needed and are welcome, because there are different needs in all different studios, and even sometimes they can coexist. But one thing is true, is something we've been missing at a local level, and this has to do with what Teresa said in the beginning, is some specialized funding. That's something that you see abroad, you see in other countries, that there are, and for example, when we organize these kind of meetings, we see that there are companies that come from other countries that are experts in investing in video games and that know about the business, because this is a very specific and very different business, and that's something that until not long ago we've had some lack of investors that knew about the business locally.
Well, I fully agree. I think that here, we try to promote the arrival of foreign investors, foreign venture capital firms. And why? I always wonder about that question. And I think that, abroad, we have international venture capital firms just focus on gaming, Web3, focus on the industry. And I think that one point is that they have deep pockets. They can, be in the first round, but they have enough money to follow on, so they can become a partner, as reference within the shareholder, within the equity, of the company. And this is why I think that it's very important, also because of the international connections. The studios and the startups, they need smart money, so they need connections, international connection. Nowadays, with a global, we live in a global world, that's for sure. So I think that there are some of the benefits that can bring the arrival of foreign venture capital firms. I don't know, Adrián, if you agree, or what are the perks or benefits that come from, you know?
No, like what we're seeing is probably there are two gaps in financing. There's the later stage gap, so the Series B, Series C, when these companies are starting to become proper scale-ups and start having a lot of recurring revenue and employing a lot of people. So there's a gap in the industry, which is a function of the industry not yet having matured, so the big investors haven't yet populated that space. But probably more to the point and more important for Spain, and I think Europe in general, is this level of when you've built your first playable game, or you have your concept really well defined, you have a team and you're building and you're valued, you know, at between this level of 1 million to 5 million, and you need maybe that 1 or 2 million to get to your next level. And it's kind of a space between the publishers of your first, second game and your idea for a big vision, for a big studio, and using new technology, proprietary technology, building your own IP, building your own engines. So those first steps, there's a bit of a gap. And in fact, like many of the conversations I try to have, not only to bring them to Icex, but even with Bitkraft, is that space before when we can come in, because we do ticket sizes of 3 to 5 million, like around late Series Seed and Series A. But what about that pre-seed, seed level? There aren't that many players, and usually the players that are localized. So this is a function of what you were mentioning, that Spain still has to mature or still has to have success stories so that you have a specialist in the seed level. So far you do have seed investors in general venture capital, but do those general venture capitalists understand video games, and can they build a good relationship with game studios? Because games take 2 to 3 years to develop, and can venture capitalists understand that process? You need to understand the video gaming. So that means there need to be success stories out of the video game industry that become venture capitalists, which is what happened at Bitkraft, and now we're hiring people from outside the venture capital, the gaming world, such as myself. I come from the finance world, to kind of bring more diversified knowledge. But that thin layer, it's the problematic one, and it's not just Spain. It's across Europe, where you always have the same problems. You have a big vision startup, which is too early for us, and kind of where do you deposit that? Something that's happening that's starting to fill up that hole is that publishers are doing financing deals with startups as opposed to pure publishing deals. We're starting to hear about that. So that can start filling up that gap. But maybe because I haven't been in the industry for long enough, or maybe because somehow I'm not aware of them yet, I think there's a gap over there.
Okay, so we have to fill that, that gap with funds, or funding from early stage, to seed and Series A and B. This is what the ecosystem requires. If I told maybe some words, metaverse, IPs, NFTs, they are words that come, like from the future. And I wanted to ask you, what are the trends, you see in the future in the industry, when we hear all these words coming in?
The number one trend we always have to hear about is building good games that are fun. Like that has to be the rule, right? All these other technologies that come in, if applied correctly, can be extremely exciting, can create a massive market, and can bring new entrants into the market, right? So if you look at what mobile did for the gaming industry, it created a whole new revenue stream, practically a parallel industry to the traditional console and PC market. So if technologies are applied correctly, they can be a massive power-up. But what happened in the Web3 blockchain space, especially in 2020, 2021, is they were abused for financial reasons, which ended up being the people who invested in those games or bought those games ended up with a very deflated experience, right? So it wasn't fun, which is, I think, the most fantastic part about this industry is creative people building cool experiences. Let's focus on that. Now, if these technologies can enhance them, then it's amazing, right? So I'll just give you some examples from our portfolio. So we have an AI company that is not focusing on building the main character of the game, but is focusing on using AI for NPC characters, so non-playable characters. So one of my favorite things to do in these big world, large open world games is to just discover the world, right? One of my favorite things to do on Red Dead Redemption, which is this massive game, is to do the fishing game, because I find it really stimulating. I don't know why. But now what if you could meet a character in that world, and because there's so much compute power inside that character, you can actually spend the whole day having a conversation with this character who's telling you about his life in 1800 USA or 1900 New York. So it will make the experience much more immersive. Maybe you feel a bit more that you're really in that space. So that's like how we can use these technologies to create much more fun experiences. Another example is an investment we made here in Spain. In Valencia, it's called Voice Mod, where basically you spend all this money to customize your avatar or your character inside the game. It's now a representation of you or an extension of your character. But then when you're playing online, it has your voice. So you've put in all this money to be this, I don't know, punk rock killer robot alien, and then you sound like yourself and maybe have a squeaky voice or a shy voice. Now imagine you can put in a robotic voice and really sound like the badass character you want to be. Again, that creates, they call it sonic identity. So it's an extension of your identity. So this is how we can use technology to improve the gameplay fun experience and make things even more fun. And this is what we in venture capital are exciting about. Besides building great games, which is still the most important aspect, about 35% of our portfolio is content and IP, but these technological experiences around the gaming entertainment is a very, very important growth space for us.
José María or Teresa, any trend in the future? Or?
I fully agree that all these technology improvements and so on are open us a number of opportunities, but 5G in the case of mobile or metaverse and haptic technologies and VR and all these open us a new world of opportunities. But at the same time, I fully agree that the important thing here is content and that we have to focus on that. And at the same time, I would say that at least in the case of Spain, this content could also open us a new series of opportunities related with the usage that could be given to these video games. I talked not long ago with somebody from Canada, and they were telling me, look, we were talking about serious games, and they were telling me, look, for us in Canada, Spain is a reference in terms of culture and in terms of health. Your health system, you know, is something that where we pay a lot of attention. And they say, so any serious game coming from Spain linked to health or linked to culture would be very welcome because we see you as a power country worldwide in those areas. So there are also some opportunities that might open to our industry because of course we are entertainment and this is the big business for us. But at the same time, video games can also be used for other things, and here in Spain we have some opportunities also in that area.
Okay, that's great. Well, we just have 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes left, and I also want to leave a room for Q&A. Is there anything else you want to add? I mean, any demand from the association industry? Any demand from or any question? Or from the venture capital, anything you want to stress? I mean, anything demanding from the studios?
Well, if we had to demand something, would be more funding, of course, more public funding.
Teresa is just next to you,
which is coming, and we see also that the government and at a national level, the different ministries, also at a regional level, the regions, the cities themselves, as for example Madrid with this kind of events, are really trying to push this sector, are really trying to work with us and help us grow. So and one of these areas where they are starting to support us stronger is with funding. So I encourage them to keep on doing so. We normally ask them to work also on tax reliefs for the sector, as we are having in other countries in Europe, as in the UK or France or Italy, now in Ireland. It would be great for us in order to compete at the same level with developers from other countries. And at the same time, when we speak with studios, what the feeling I have is that they need some advice. Advice from investors, advice from organizations like AEVI, and from other stakeholders, because we are growing, we are on that route to become more professional and to become bigger, and they still have some questions. So we're all of us trying to work together with them to improve. And one of the aspects, for example, has to do with internationalization, which is something where Icex is also putting a lot of effort, and Icex and organizations like AEVI are trying to provide this kind of advice on where to go, who to meet, and so on, which is something that maybe in the past was not being done, and that's it. That's it. That's
okay.
We have to work, and also maybe some mentorship from those who know better about the sector, and there we're also from our association trying to support these companies.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up on this last point. So in the startup world, there's this concept called lighthouses. A lighthouse is something that gives you light when there is dark, right? And the embodiment of that in the startup world are people who have been successful in the past, who are now giving advice and helping the next generation come forward. And that's even very practical and important from an investment standpoint, because if there's someone has been successful in the past that is giving a stamp of recommendation for a game studio, as an investor, you do a double check on that due diligence and you look at it with a bit more intensity than if it just came out of your general pipeline. It's human nature. This is how business and human relationships work. When you get a warm recommendation, you tend to look deeper. So if there is a group of successful game developers that have been successful in the past, then let's really support them to be out there speaking to the other game studios and becoming official advisors, official mentors, maybe sitting on the boards of those game studios, because the compounding effect of those experienced veterans when introducing investors, when introducing publishers, will have a very, very big effect. And if we can then make a meeting place between up-and-coming game studios and these veterans, then the next step of providing finance will be a little bit easier. Still very hard, but a little bit easier.
Okay. So we take note. I mean, we'll try to promote and to connect the ecosystem. Teresa, we'll try to provide funds to the ecosystem to improve the ecosystem itself. And, well, I mean, we have 5-10 minutes left, so if there's any questions from the audience, please raise your hands. And there's a mic over there. Okay.
Regarding the, this is for Adrián Galea. Regarding the fundraising side of your job at Bitkraft, how do you involve traditional money to invest in, well, in video games?
Yeah, so we raised most of our funding from American LPs. And so a lot of family offices, few corporates, especially strategic corporates, just to mention one that's public is like, for example, Sony. And then the larger retirement fund, pension funds, education funds. So that's kind of who we're at, who our mix is. Most of them don't get involved at the lower level, right? They trust us to be good money managers to invest the funds. But what they do have an active interest in is being co-investors. So once we take an investment decision, actually that allows other money to come in alongside us, whether immediately in the first investment or maybe later down the line. So trying to answer your question here is, when you do attract these dedicated investors, usually that allows even the wider players to get involved because they can put their trust, and the law requires money managers to have that fiduciary position, and they can put more general money, so to say, to work through these specialized funds. Having a general corporate invest in a video game might be difficult for that relationship to work out well. So being able to attract these dedicated money managers is a good way to get more general money into the system. I hope I answered. Okay.
Hello. I just wanted to know what the panel thinks about co-production, European co-production in gaming, because of the lack of funding at the beginning in prototype or production level. I mean, we've been setting up a co-production market in Europe for 3-4 years now, and there are more and more public funding in different countries that you can put together through co-production. So I wanted to know what you think about that.
My answer is I don't have enough experience. The things we've invested in have been a traditional startup with like the founding team with a vision, no really these larger co-produced projects or with different entities kind of working together. So we really, so far, have always invested in like a dedicated founding team with a big vision. It's really been that straightforward and simple. And maybe I misunderstood, but...
No, I mean, it's very similar, but it's just instead of having one quite small team, you have 2 teams coming together and putting more public funding together. And I think in that case, the project together is more mature and more interesting, I think, for people like you. That's the goal, basically. Yeah,
but look, the market we've been exposed to so far, not really, but I'm not saying no, right? It's just my lack of experience.
And I believe about co-production that what you say has a lot of sense. I mean, we don't have a broad knowledge of how to do so. That's something that has been working, for example, in the audiovisual industry for many years. And when you talk to studios, they don't really know how to manage to work together with other companies in other countries. They don't say, no, that's something I don't want to do or I don't plan to do ever. They say, we don't know how to do it, who to do it, and so on. So I think it's a question of time that it starts working, but they need more information. They need some experiences that could be a reference for them, and so on. And it's going to take some time, but it will probably work.
Yeah, I mean the market we propose include a lot of mentoring, because as you say, it's a lot of education to people. But I must say this year we had more than 100 studios who participated, quite a lot of from Spain as well. But at the end, we didn't get a lot of Spanish companies doing really co-production. So I think there's still some need for education, but also people to understand that they cannot do everything alone, and that it's a really good way to partner, to collaborate, to learn, to get more expertise, and to also to limit the risk of doing everything alone, basically, and getting some funding. So, thank you.
Okay, we are running out of time, so thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for your contribution to this panel, and a big applause for the speakers. Thank you.
So thank you very much to everyone. I think it was a wonderful way of understanding how the ecosystem works. And also, as head of the audiovisual from Spain and games from Spain, I took a lot of notes that we're working, and there is a lot of work in progress for the Spanish studios. We are working on the capacity building, which we believe it's really important. We are working together with the Spielfabrik for the co-production for next year. We are working with Bitkraft. Thank you, Adrián, for helping us with this mentorship. And I think the problems are there. Everyone knows the problems. But now we have to put together the experiences and the time from the part of the Spanish studios to understand how important it is to have the right tools. And that's one of the pillars we're working in from Games from Spain, the capacity building for the studios. We're also working on the financing. This is the other way, always the sector is asking us to work on the financing. I think now in a couple of minutes we'll have a great opportunity to look and put some light and share some light on all the great work that Adrián has been doing with the studios for the last month, and to have pitches for investors with Meet to Match. It was a wonderful experience to work with Meet to Match and Gorilla on this event. So we are working on that part also. And because Spain and the Spanish government has put together a plan in order for Spain to become the audiovisual hub of Europe, and it's putting together 1.6 billion in the next 3 years. And we hope we are able to have a bigger ecosystem and to be bigger than the fourth market in Europe in terms of developing, because we have the talent, as was said, and we need now the companies to follow us and to have a bigger market. I won't take more time from you. We have now the most important part of the day, the pitches, and then we will have the cocktail. Please be there. It's a good opportunity for networking, and we'll have B2B tables after lunch. So thanks to everyone. Thanks, Feder. And now it's time for the pitches. Thank you.